Houston, we have a problem. Where is our nose wheel? It worked a second ago. Worked on my first landing. Didn't work on the second landing. I just tried making sure that the connector was in all the way. And I might try a different connector just for kicks. So 5, 6, and 7 are landing gear. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh yes, it's in number 7. So let's try number 6. And I'm just counting over. I've now moved the connector over to, let's see, one blank, the middle one, I guess. Yeah. Okay, of the landing gear connectors, it's now on the middle one. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 over. Just making sure everything is in nice and solid. Okay, let's try that. Oh, partway, huh? That's weird. Okay, so it's probably not that connector. Well, let's open up that area and see what we can find. I believe I found the issue. I pulled it apart, and on the servo for the, or actuator for the nose wheel retract, on this little metal bit down here, that was all wet. So there was a little bit of dew. I mean, you can, looking at the rest of the plane, you know, when our field is really wet, you get tons of grass and stuff stuck up here. We don't have all of that. Got little bits here and there. Don't see anything in here as far as evidence of that type of thing. But on the nose wheel, that was a little bit wet right on that metal bit there. So I'm going to let it dry out. I'll test it again when it's dry, and I'll bet that the thing works. You can see the drop of water right there. So there wasn't much on there, but I'll bet that that's the issue, is just simply getting wet. So that being the case, after it's dry and everything, I'm going to seal up that metal part right there. I've got some liquid electrical tape type stuff, and I'm going to paint that on there to keep that from getting wet. The field wasn't bad today. I've flown planes in far, far worse wet conditions. But anyway, I think that'll be our problem solved, so we will see. One particular thing to be careful of on this is that with Freewing, they do have voltage limitations on different components. And this particular one for the landing gear servos, I think they say it's 5 to 5.5 volts. And my servo tester runs at about 6.5 volts. So I can't use a servo tester on it to check it. So we'll just let it dry out and see if everything starts working. Well, this has now been drying for several hours, and of course I dried it off externally before that. So I'm now going to use this liquid electric tape and just paint up that exposed area on the top there and put a little bit around the cable where it goes in, which ought to help somewhat at least. Doing along the seam and where that metal part was, and then right where the cable goes in. So this will sort of turn into a rubber. And of course it's waterproof and it's non-conductive, so it won't mess up any electronics. Well, here we are. We got everything all nice and buttoned back in again. We've put the black stuff on it. Let's see, where are we here? Okay, so as you look at that thing there, the black that you see in there, that used to be metal exposed. And so that's all set. And now, as we flick the switch, And I don't believe it. I thought for sure it was the moisture on the thing. Something else is happening. Okay, so that's working 100% of the time. Now the next thing that I did is I've been talking to both the hobby shop and, well, through the hobby shop to the Freewing people. And they suggested, the Freewing people suggested that I lubricate the nose wheel. And they do have another one coming, you know, since I had the problem. But I've continued working on it in the meantime. So anyway, I've been reluctant to use the servo tester in that I've got 6.5 volts instead of 5.5 volts. But just thinking of it from an engineering standpoint, 1 volt on a motor is not going to be an issue, I don't think. Let's see, battery goes on this side. So I decided, yeah, let's go ahead and see what we can do. So get it into servo test mode. And now I'll plug in the servo. Okay, and now as I dial the, I'm trying to get it where you can see what I'm doing. As I turn the dial, when it gets to the end, down. When it gets to the end, up. And that's all been smooth. I don't feel that shaking like what I did with the first movement on the servo. But I also note that I started this in the position it was supposed to be, whereas I don't know with that servo whether it was started out in the correct initial position. But it's just going up and down as great as can be. One of the things that sort of has slowed me down a little bit with this is that when you've got this in the plane, if you get the retract in the up position, you can't get at it. So I've been rather reluctant to do too much playing around with it inside the plane. You know, a couple of times I've sort of had it stuck there and had to try it several times before I finally could get it down and do something with it. Okay, so that's certainly doing fine. Now, what does this tell us? Well, first off, it's been a week, something like that, since I had the problem. And you recall that I had some moisture on the bottom here. Well, actually, where are we? In there on that metal bit. Okay, so I put that liquid electrical tape on there to seal that up. And of course, it's had a week to potentially dry out anything that might be inside. Since then, I've also put the liquid electrical tape along the seam around here, thinking that there's a good chance that the moisture in there was the problem. And right now, that's my best guess as to what the issue was, because it certainly seems to be working fine now. And yeah, the moisture is quite possible as being the issue. So anyway, we will continue to work with it, and these intermittent things you just don't know. It might be that that needs some lubrication. But yeah, it might be that that problem is totally sorted, and I just simply avoid using it anytime there's any dew on the ground. Or maybe my sealing up the cracks and stuff in there, places where moisture could get in, that might have fixed the problem. But anyway, we'll continue to monitor it. So for now, we'll put it back in there, and we'll see how we go. I've had one more thought on this. I'm real quick to make assumptions, and I'm assuming that the water problem is the issue. However, this is a very nice plane, and to just sort of make such assumptions and just go and fly it, assuming everything is fine, may not be the wisest thing in the world. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to perform a water test. Back in another lifetime, when I was an engineer with Chevrolet, I had to do some water tests on various vehicles when I was a student engineer, and participated in some water testing, and that was mainly to make sure that people inside stayed dry. But in this particular case, it makes sense to do some testing to make sure these landing gear are going to work. So right now, I trust that they work. Okay, so let's say we're taxiing along and we got some water spray happening. Okay, various directions. That certainly got a bit of spray in there. Okay, that's a lot more spray than what we had before. Way, way more. So give that a little bit of time. And it's bouncing along and, doing whatever it's doing. Yeah. Probably some wind blowing on it. How do you like that for scientific testing? A little bit more water. Way more water than we ever had. Okay, so we get going along, we're going along, we're about ready to get in the air. We come up in the air and we're working various things. We've been working the throttle a bit. Okay, and then we decide it's time for the gear to go up. We'll do a bunch more flying around and things like that. And all kinds of stuff is happening. We decide it's time to land. So whoa, yeah. Sometimes you do hit the throttle when you're getting ready to land. And we get some more flaps in there, and we flare in for a landing. Oh yeah, we're supposed to put landing gear down, aren't we? Okay. Okay, we put the landing gear down, and yeah, Bob's your uncle. Okay, so it still doesn't prove that water was the problem, but it does say if water was the problem, then my waterproofing that I did on that servo, or on the actuator, seems to have done the job. Well, I'd say for the moment that's the best that we can do to verify that things should be okay, and we should be able to land this thing. Well, thank you for watching. I trust that the little bit of troubleshooting that we did here has been helpful. And of course, as you have various sets of models and go through various situations, other things happen. And it's good to be able to work out what causes the things that you don't want to have happen. Don't let any of this deter you from buying a beautiful jet like this one. I love it. I've only flown it twice, but already I'm itching to get back up there again because it just flies so beautifully. And I think we got that nose gear situation sorted out. So yeah, go ahead and buy a jet like this. Probably a good idea to make sure that any exposed actuators are waterproof to some degree, so the best that you can. Because there's times that there's dew on the field, and you don't want to have to just wait for absolutely perfect conditions to fly. So I encourage you to go for it. Well, I'm RC Jim signing off. If you haven't done so already, make sure that you subscribe, that little circle over there with my picture in it, and have a look at some of the other videos on our channel. You have a great day and enjoy your flying.